Wait just a second. What was your question again?
Just how the local governments are using drugs and violence as an excuse to evict these camps. Should those camps, are those camps still viable today? To continue fighting for those camps, and obviously start correcting those issues that need to be corrected, or is it something we need to move beyond? And
well, I think also this isn't what I was going to say, but this is another thing is that I mean, what is the purpose of the camps anyway? I mean, that's part of the whole question about strategy and everything else. If the purpose is as a recruiting tool, then I think maintain them until they're not viable at all. Or until you decide not to, really. But what is the point? Is the point witnessing? Is the point recruiting? Is the point? I mean, that's part of my not concern, but that's something I don't understand about this. I don't know actually what the point is.
From what I understand, the camping is symbolic to kind of put. What I gather, it's to put the realities of our homeless under the bridges and stuff like that out in the public, where people have to see what they're doing to each other. That's kind of how I interpret it.
Yeah, spread the word of, like I said, doing that witnessing of. In Seattle, for instance, our first encampment was right downtown, right at the heart of the downtown retail core.
Locations.
I thought that was brilliant, and great place to be. I get it. And now we're moved up about a mile and a half up the hill in a neighborhood that is predominantly probably in our favor and knows what we're talking about and already agrees with us. And to me, I'm like, okay, I don't see the purpose of that. You're not in those people's faces that need to be told, here's what's going on in this world and you need to see it.
Two things. One of them is that my friend Stephanie McMillan is making has been doing some cartoons of the Occupy, supportive of it. And at one point, one of the characters said, Washington D.C. actually was pretty smart. The police were pretty smart in how they dealt with Occupy the Machine, in that they didn't go in and beat them up. Instead, they simply extended their permit, so they can stay for another 4 months. And so everybody's like, oh, well. And there were okay. So do we just accept the permit, or what do we do? And one of the characters in the cartoon says, I came here to fight. I didn't come here to camp. And so if you end up just camping, I mean, from the perspective of those in power, that's what I would do. I would just say, go ahead, camp, have fun in the New York winter. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, which is the thing I was thinking about that I forgot, is that when I was in Occupy San Francisco, one of the questions they asked me is, they said, we have all these problems because there's alcoholics coming in, there's addicts coming in, there's people who have been destroyed by society coming in, and what do we do with them? And one of the things I said was that I think obviously we collectively need to take care of people who have been harmed by this society, but at the same time I think we need to separate function, because you can't run a resistance movement at the same time that you're attempting to you can. I think of the Black Panthers, when they had the breakfast programs, and then they also had more militant parts of the movement. But at the same time, those functions were kept somewhat separate. They didn't try to feed everybody in their armed bunkers. I mean, that wouldn't make any sense.
Right.
And so I think insofar as possible, that's part of the problem, is that, and this has been quite intentional on the part of those in power to sort of push these groups together. But basically what that's doing is that's turning a resistance movement into a social welfare movement. And those are different functions. And that's not to say that social welfare is useless. It's very, very important, but it's not the same thing as a resistance movement.
So, and I think that would tie back to if somebody's good at those social services, let them do that.
Right.
But yet you need to have those people who are going to go out and get arrested.
And don't let the state off the hook for this either, because that's why they pretend that there's a state, is to take care of the least of these, or those who've been the most harmed. But we all know that's not really what's happening. But in any case, that's still. I mean, there's got to be ways that you can turn that back around to make that an additional indictment of the state.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are we frozen, Josh?
They're not saying we are.
Usually they're pretty good about telling us.
How do they tell you?
There's a
He's
shot.
watching chat.
Yeah, I'm watching. Ha!
Shows what I know.
Crap.
Oh, they
No,
sent us
kind
questions.
of moved. Lisa sent. They just want to know if we're going to be taking some questions
Oh.
afterwards, and we're hoping to. I think the something we had talked about. It's not really one of our written down questions, but it kind of ties in. I think is with the movements of taking over a port or things like that. Obviously, lead to violence. I mean, I was in Seattle where they sat in the streets. We moved to the sidewalks, and we were pepper sprayed.
Mm-hmm.
Wait,
absolutely.
Can we stop for a second
Sure.
and discuss the word obviously?
Mm.
You said that taking over port obviously leads to violence,
Well,
but I need to just specify
that's
that the violence that you mentioned there it comes from the cops.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
And that's,
I don't want to use the word obviously because those in power are still making a choice to perpetrate violence.
yes, I apologize.
No reason to
Yeah,
apologize.
very well. Yeah. I mean,
The power
it
of
leads
words.
exactly.
Exactly.
It's that. And to me, that shows that what we're doing is right. You know, that's. What I was,
Okay, here's language I'd be happy with, which is with every president except for the possible exception of FDR, occupying a site of commerce will oftentimes those in power respond by violence to that. And the reason I set off FDR is because there's this one time.
More than once.
Well, one of the things FDR did that was pretty cool is there would be strikers, and he would actually send in the cops to protect their right to strike.
yeah. Shocking.
Protect their rights?
Yeah.
That's
But I've never heard of that except for FDR. And I don't want to deify FDR, but he just.
But at least in that one aspect.
And but I think we can
Marvelous.
say that if we actually impede commerce,
Mm-hmm.
impeding commerce is like the biggest sin in capitalism. If we impede commerce, those in power believe that commerce is more important than the lives of those who are broken by the violence they inflict in order to maintain this commerce.
Yeah.
Sorry to go on too long.
No,
That's
absolutely.
no.
Because how would we do that? How would we impede that? I mean, how would we boycott? I mean, because you were talked about in Deep Green Resistance, I think it was Liberals and Radicals, you were talking about the American Revolution, and there was the Tea Party, and that's how we boycotted.
Not to be confused with current.
No.
Doesn't
But
that
now,
piss you off?
It does. It really does.
That makes me so angry.
and so now, I mean, everywhere there's a billboard, you know. So how can we stifle that system? How can we impede, like you said? It's everywhere. Because wouldn't that what am I trying to say? There's no, I don't know how to boycott in the 21st century. Yes.
Systems as large as, say, capitalism or civilization are not going to be brought down by boycotts. Slavery was not going to be brought down by boycotts. I mean, something that's that entrenched as an entire system, you can make tiny little changes. I mean, we can get Wendy's to stop using battery caged hens. I mean, small things like that, yes, we can apply pressure, and we should do those things. I mean, it's all a continuum. But these larger systems they're not going to give to a boycott. There's no way that you can apply that kind of pressure to a system that's as vast as capitalism. Go ahead.
Because of boycott, the point is that once they exceed your demand, they're doing that. The reason they exceed is because you're costing them profit, and the presumption is that once you stop the boycott, they can increase their profit.
Right.
Montgomery, the bus boycotts, you know, it's that because once people start taking the bus again, then they make money again.
Right.
But if you're actually talking about stopping capitalism,
Stopping profit.
you're talking
What
about
about stopping profit?
Yeah.
That's
That's
not
what
going to
I'm
work.
ain't gonna work.
Yeah. So we're going to need a larger movement than just, well, buy this, not that. That's not going to get us out of this mess. Now, there would be ways to try to use nonviolent techniques to do this. And, my prime example is last November when they had the labor strike in France. And they thought very strategically. They're very good at this in Europe. This was because of all the quote austerity measures, and so the people were very upset about this, as they should be. So they blockaded the oil depots in France so that the fuel couldn't come and go. And then when the French government escalated and tried to open the emergency reserves, they blockaded a whole bunch more. And this left something like 30 oil tankers out in the Mediterranean that couldn't offload. And within 3 weeks, the whole economy was grinding to a halt. This was done completely non-violently. It was just people's bodies, and the truckers joined in. So they blocked. Well, they thought like the military. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're using violence or non-violence. You have to think strategically, and this is what every military knows how to do: is stop the energy flow, because that's what the entire thing depends on, right? So we could do this. If we had enough people, we could shut this party down by midnight. There's no question. We could. The question is, do we? Okay, do we have enough people who will go in wave after wave after wave after wave after wave and shut down things like oil depots, the tar sands, the pipelines from the tar sands, mountaintop removal, all that coal comes by train. Do you know how easy it would be to stop those trains? But nobody will think strategically about this. And for whatever reason, the environmental movement and left in general has taken all those tactics off the table entirely. I don't know why. The plant is at stake. It's gone. I mean, I don't know. We've all lost the ability to think strategically in this country.
I totally agree.
It's insane.
I think it's the fear of violence from the other side.
Okay,
at this point.
anytime that you,
I mean,
you know this, anytime that you actually threaten power, they will come at you, probably with violence. Our nonviolence will not protect us. That's not the reason to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, the reason to do it is because it's a very, very, very elegant technique if you get it right. But they're going to come at you, and they can kill you. But you need what it requires, which is large numbers of people. And my point, especially in our book Deep Green Resistance, is I don't think we've got the numbers, which is why we want to talk about other tactics. But as far as nonviolence goes, yes, we could bring down capitalism using nonviolence, but we need enough people, and I don't think we've got them.
I think part of the reason that especially the environmental movement has a serious problem with thinking strategically is that I think that a lot of the environmental movement doesn't know what they really want, and especially in the United States, where people are so metabolized and bought off by the system. I don't think that most, at least national level environmentalists are against capitalism, and a lot of them say explicitly they're not against capitalism. I think a lot of grassroots activists are against capitalism, but they're also fighting local battles only because it's the old primary emergency thing. I mean, they're trying to keep these trees standing, and so they're not doing the larger questioning. Isn't enough time? Kind of like, some woman who is running a rape crisis hotline might not have time to do any theorizing about patriarchy because she's just dealing with phone calls, dealing with the logistics of the actual organization. My point is, on a larger scale, one of the reasons that I think that the environmentalism, one reason that there isn't a lot of strategy at that level is because environmentalism brings forward more clearly than a lot of other movements the complete irredeemability of capitalism.